Hello, sir. My father has a birthmark just like that. Harper Quinn's voice trembled, her eyes locked onto millionaire Lucas Bennett, as though her world had just collapsed. The silver spoon in Lucas's hand froze midair. His heart pounded when he glanced down at the star-shaped birthmark on his wrist. Blood rushed to Harper's ears as memories of her mother's stories about an unknown father flooded back like a blade. Lucas, stoic on the outside but panic-stricken within, confronted a secret buried for 23 years. Could this birthmark shatter everything? All right, my dear audience, get ready for a story that will leave you speechless. Take a moment to hit like and subscribe, and drop a comment below to let me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. It's always exciting to see viewers joining us from all around the world. Saturday evenings at Liqueur always played like a symphony of refined French cuisine aromas intertwined with the clinking of crystal glasses. But tonight, even the warm golden lights softening the usual bustle couldn't stop Harper Quinn from feeling that everything around her had grown distant, as if she'd been thrust into the lead role of a play she never auditioned for. Harper, a 22-year-old art student with sleek blonde hair tied neatly high, embodied both diligence and dreaminess. Her black apron hugged her slender frame, while her scuffed flats silently testified to the months of scrimping she endured to afford each hour of painting at the academy. She never imagined her life split between paint layers and evening shifts would suddenly veer in a new direction, all because of a birthmark. Table 9 tonight was under special instructions for every staff member, Lucas Bennett. The mere mention of his name caught the attention of real estate brokers across the Deep South. 45, successful, aloof, and solitary. His salt and pepper hair and steely gray eyes, the color of early autumn mist lent him a calm authority that seemed to quiet the entire room. His assistant, Caleb, sat beside him. Opposite was a potential partner, hushed negotiations and inscrutable glances brewing a major deal. Harper approached with confident steps, as she had hundreds of times before. As she poured wine into Lucas's glass, the light reflecting off the Bordeaux caught his rolled-up deep blue shirt sleeve, and there it was, a star-shaped birthmark. Small, neat, sitting just below the prominent vein on his left wrist. In that fleeting instant, Harper's heart constricted. If you ever see someone with this, remember, the star-shaped birthmark on the left wrist, that's your father. Her mother Nora's words echoed like an old recording replayed in the dead of night. Harper swallowed hard. She had never met her father, never known his name. Her mother never said more, leaving only this single sign. And now it stood before her unmistakably. Harper set the wine bottle on the table, her hand trembling. There was no time to think, no time to plan. The words escaped her mouth like a primal instinct. "Hello, sir. My father has a birthmark just like that." The air froze, the clatter of cutlery, the murmurs of conversation all sucked into an absolute silence. Lucas Bennett lifted his head. His eyes, so often described as Iceno, fluttered between astonishment and shock. The silver spoon in his hand hovered midair, as though he could not believe what he was hearing. Caleb leaned in to whisper, but Lucas raised a hand, signaling silence. His gaze on Harper was no longer that of a client toward a server. It was a searchlight, probing buried memories, as if to confirm something of immense importance. "What did you say?" His tone was steady, yet beneath that cool veneer shimmered bewilderment. Harper gripped the tray tight. She was not accustomed to being the center of attention, nor to having a room full of eyes drilling into her every breath. Yet she couldn't take back her words. "My mother," she said, "my father has a star-shaped birthmark. Right there, on the left wrist. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have." She turned away, heart pounding, desperate to escape the gaze burning into her. But what Harper could not see was Lucas's hand lifting unconsciously to touch his own left wrist. As if he needed to feel the truth more tangibly, as if he, too, were tracing a long-forgotten memory. Outside, rain began to fall softly, New Orleans street lamps flickered through the downpour. But inside Le Cure, a story had begun. A story of a birthmark, a young woman, and a man shaken awake by the truth. A twist of fate had just entered the tender tumult of an otherwise ordinary Saturday night. That night, Lucas couldn't sleep a wink. In his expansive penthouse overlooking the Mississippi River, he sat alone in a pale gray armchair, clutching a tumbler of whiskey, nearly warmed to room temperature. Outside the glass walls, lights from passing boats shimmered in flickering trails across the water. But in Lucas's mind, only one name burned more brightly than ever: Nora Sullivan. The tiny birthmark on his wrist, something he'd never given a second thought to, had become the catalyst for a storm of memories. The words of the young waitress, Harper, cut through his carefully buried past like a knife. "My father has a birthmark just like that." 2002, Charleston, South Carolina. He had been a 22-year-old man, then tall, handsome, his eyes ablaze with ambition. As the sole heir to Bennett Realty, he lacked nothing except freedom. Every move Lucas made was monitored by his father, a stern, inflexible man who believed emotion was weakness. It was during that time that Lucas met Nora. Nora Sullivan was a young artist, painting murals in underprivileged neighborhoods. She had softly curled brown hair, amber eyes, and a smile that could warm even the rainiest day. They met on a city-sponsored community art project. Lucas's father had forced him to invest as a public relations maneuver, while Nora painted out of pure passion and a belief that art could change the world. From the moment they first locked eyes amid spray paint hisses and street music beats, Lucas was captivated. She was unlike anyone he'd ever known: blunt, full laughter, unafraid to challenge his rigid worldview. She taught him to see an abandoned wall as a blank page. She led him to moss-covered rooftops where they painted glowing stars against the night sky. Their love ignited fiercely, wildly romantic, and intoxicating. Never before had Lucas felt so alive as he did with Nora. But then reality, the Burke family name, loomed over him like an inescapable curse. When Lucas's father discovered their affair, he seethed, "If you carry on with her, don't expect a single dollar of your inheritance." It was more than a threat. It was a declaration of war. Lucas, in a moment of weakness, said nothing. He offered no protest, no farewell. He simply withdrew. And Nora, the woman he loved, vanished from Charleston months later, leaving no message, no trace. Lucas had convinced himself she'd moved on. He buried the relationship as a fleeting romance. Yet for 23 years, he never truly forgot her eyes, her smile. He once longed to find her again, but shame over his cowardice paralyzed him. And now, a girl named Harper with eyes uncannily like Nora Shad struck him with the words, "My father has a birthmark just like that." While Lucas wrestled with his memory, Harper sat alone in her small Marigny apartment. The room held only a pale yellow bedside lamp, casting light on a framed photograph perched before the mirror. In that picture dated 2003, Nora, disheveled in a hospital gown, cradles newborn Harper in her arms. Her smile seemed to embrace the world, yet her eyes betrayed a nameless sorrow. Beside the frame rested a simple wooden box. Harper lifted the lid, her hand trembling. Inside lay her mother's lifelong keepsakes: a turquoise bracelet, several unsent letters, and a carefully folded yellowed sheet of paper. She unfolded the letter. Her mother's handwriting was soft, tilted. "Lucas, if our daughter ever finds you, please love her. I hold no anger toward you. I understand that silence can stem from fear, not lack of love. But I hope that if this day comes, you will be braver than your silence. Nora." Harper read and reread the note, tears silently tracing her cheeks. She had never imagined she would learn the truth about her father. Her mother had never accusingly quietly loved and hoped. Now, this letter stood as the final message, a bridge between past and present. Harper whispered, as if Nora still sat there watching her through the mirror's reflection. "Mom, I think I found him." Harper couldn't keep it all inside. She couldn't return to work as if nothing had happened. That birthmark and Lucas's silent, panic-stricken Gazahad opened a door that all her life, for 22 years, she'd only heard about in her mother's stories. That night, she sat by the window of her small Marigny apartment, streetlights casting long shadows across the keyboard as she typed. She wrote a short blog post, anonymous, image-free, a small fragment of a larger tale. She recounted her mother Nora Sullivan, a mural artist now gone, and the strange sign, a star-shaped birthmark, on the left wrist. She wrote that her mother had told her, "If one day you see someone with that mark, don't turn away. It might be your father." She told the story simply, faithfully, like a whisper in the dead of night. By morning, her post had spread across forums about family secrets, lost identities, and unspoken truths in past relationships. Among the hundreds of sympathetic and encouraging comments, one message sent a chill down Harper's spine. "If that man is who I think he is, be careful. He's not easy to face." She read it again and again. She didn't know who "that man" referred to, but the warning only strengthened her resolve. She began her quest for the truth. The next day, Harper took the evening off. She went to the New Orleans Public Library, used her card to access the newspaper archives, and flipped through the 2002 editions, focusing on Charleston, South Carolina. Yellowed headlines and columns blurred by time filled the pages until she saw it, a grainy black and white photo of a young man standing beside a colorful mural. The caption read, "Muralist Nora Sullivan paints for the Bennett Community Project 2002. And the man beside her was none other than a young, dashing Lucas Bennett, gazing thoughtfully at the wall. Harper's heart pounded. She photocopied the image, clutching it like proof. No more doubt remained. Her mother had stood with this Manand Lucas had known, or once had known. Across town, Lucas couldn't sit still either. Harper's words echoed endlessly in his mind. He could no longer guess, or Heidi would not let silence rob him of what mattered most again. He hired Tessa Reed, a discreet, sharp private investigator she had employed on past business matters, to uncover the truth about Harper Quinn. Within 48 hours, Tessa delivered a slim but weighty dossier. Harper Quinn's birth certificate. Mother, Nora Sullivan. Father, left blank. Tessa placed the certificate on the desk. Lucas dared not touch it at first, feeling as though he were reading a chapter of his own past, sealed away for 2 decades. Death certificate for Nora, year 2015. Cause, end, stage heart failure. No next of kin recorded. Lucas closed his eyes, pain stabbing his chest. He had known nothing, no farewell, no funeral, only the memories he'd buried. Tessa produced a photograph. Harper, present-day fresh, out of art school, holding a brush, looking straight into the camera. Lucas studied the image. His hand shook not at her expression, but at the familiar light in her eyes. It was Nora's light, unmistakable, undeniable. In that moment, past and present collided with unyielding force. He opened his safe and retrieved a small box he hadn't touched in over 20 years. Inside lay Nora's letter-sunset pages and a sealed envelope bearing handwriting he never thought he'd see again. To Lucas, if you still remember. With trembling hands, he opened the envelope to reveal a letter from 2003. Lucas, you did not fight for me, but if our daughter ever seeks you, please fight for her. Her name is Harper. I do not write this to blame you. I write because I know one day she will need you not as a perfect father, but as a man brave enough to make amends. Nora. Lucas folded the letter carefully, as one might close an entire chapter of life. He sank into his chair, staring out at the dark river, but in his heart, dawn was breaking. She never told me, because I wasn't worthy, he whispered, but now he knew. It was time to find his daughter, not merely to atone, but because he loved her. Dear audience, please take a moment to relax or pour yourself a glass of water, then stay tuned for more twists yet to come. Comment 1 if you're still with us and enjoying the story. Lucas Bennett, the powerful figure who normally appears in headlines for billion-dollar real estate deal shows, a completely different way to make his entrance. No flash. No massive LED screens, no bold company banners. Just him, a plain wooden lectern, and a room packed with journalists whose curious, eager eyes waited for news of another deal. That day, the Bennett Tower was thick with expectation. Outside, live television cameras were already in place. Financial networks, tabloids, even major social media channels were all present. Everyone was braced for a blockbuster announcement, a new handshake, a Wall Street-shaking statement. But Lucas stepped onto the stage, empty-handed, no entourage, no slideshow. He wore a light gray suit, tie absent. The stage lights revealed a calm face etched with the traces of a sleepless night. In his breast pocket lay a small, neatly folded piece of paper. "Good morning," Lucas began. His voice carried clearly through the glass, walled auditorium steady, unguarded, without the usual distance. "I know you all came here expecting to hear about real estate, but today, I'm not here to announce a project. I'm here to acknowledge a mistake." A soft rustle passed through the room and then absolute silence. Lucas lifted his gaze to the audience, his eyes scanning every face with an unusual sincerity. 23 years ago, I fell in love with a woman named Nora Sullivan. She was an artista woman whose light and life I had never seen before. But I wasn't brave enough to protect that love. I let her walk away without a word, without any search, and that was the worst decision of my life. Hundreds of cameras flashed in unison. Reporters couldn't believe what they were hearing, Lucas Bennett publicly confessing a personal failure in front of the entire world. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know I had a daughter. Not until a few days ago, when a young woman approached me in a restaurant and said only this, "My father has a birthmark just like that." Lucas slowly raised his left hand and pulled back his suit sleeve. Under the stage lights, the small star-shaped birthmark on his left wrist stood out clearly, faint but unmistakable. "I say this not to seek forgiveness," he continued in a deep, unshaken voice, "but because I've learned that silence carries its own price. I lost Noraith, woman I loved. But I will not lose Harper, me daughter. She deserves to know who she truly is, and Nora deserves to be remembered as part of this story." With that, Lucas nodded lightly and stepped off the podium. He declined interview requests, didn't look back, leaving behind a stunned room and social media ablaze with hashtags like #Lucas Bennett, #Harper Story, and #Star Birthmark. The press conference video racked up millions of views within hours. But for Lucas, nothing mattered more than the moment he finally spoke the truth out loud, openly, without fear. Not far away, in a small Garden District apartment, Harper sat on her friend Lila's sofa. The television was streaming the live press conference. At first, Harper thought it must be coincidence, but when Lucas took the stage and began to speak, both she and Lila fell silent. Every word of his confession was like wind tearing open the locked doors of Harper's heart. And then he raised his left hand. Harper clasped her mouth, tears spilling over. She wasn't crying from sorrow, but from the relief that someone had spoken out for her mother. The truth was no longer a distant rumor. Lila reached for her hand and pulled Harper into an embrace. "He's not hiding anymore, Harper," she whispered. "He chose to stand for the truth, and for you." 3 days after the press conference, Lucas sent a brief email to Harper. No elaboration, no excuses, just a simple invitation. Meet at the little cafe in the Garden District where Nora used to go, where the old brick wall still hosts murals by anonymous local artists, and the scent of beignets always drifts on the morning breeze. Harper read that email at least 20 times. She hesitated. Her mind wavered between old wounds and the promise her mother had never heard. Please love him. A single, short sentence, but carrying the full trust her mother had placed in the man who walked away from them. And so she went. Morning in the Garden District was strangely peaceful. Rows of French-style houses draped in purple bougainvillea, tiny cafes opening early to greet the first rays of sunlight. Harper wore her mother's old cream-colored sweater soft, slightly worn around the collar. In her hand, she carried a sketch-fragment of childhood memory she had treasured for years. Lucas was already seated in the corner by the window, alone. No assistant, no documents, just a steaming cup of black coffee and his gaze drifting out onto the street. When Harper entered, he stood immediately. But instead of a greeting, they simply looked at each other for a long moment. In that silence, there was both strangeness and familiarity, unspoken words waiting between them. Lucas broke the quiet. "Thank you for coming," he said softly, sincerely. "I've read your blog, and everything people have written about you. I don't know where to begin." Harper sat down, her hand resting lightly on the wooden table. Her voice was steady, though her eyes betrayed caution. "I'm not here for your money or your reputation. I just want to know, did you love my mother?" Those words made Lucas pause, but he did not shy away. He looked straight into Harper's eyes, as if prepared to face anything. "I loved Nora," he said slowly, each word drawn from his heart. "More than anything, but I was too weak to hold on to her. I thought silence would hurt the least, but in truth, it took everything." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small, worn scroll of paper. The edges were yellowed, the corners frayed. He gently unrolled it on the table. "Your mother painted this for me," he whispered. "A sky full of stars, with one largest star. She said it was May Boot. I never felt worthy." Harper looked at the painting, her hand trembling. The colors had faded, but the gentle lines were unmistakably Nora's. A deep violet sky, a star larger than the rest blazing in the upper right corner. She reached into her own bag and took out her childhood sketch, a scrap of paper she'd drawn at 10 years old. It showed a curly-haired woman and a faceless man, both with star-shaped birthmarks on their wrists. She placed it beside her mother's painting. "I drew you," Harper said, her voice catching, "even though I didn't know who you were then. But Mom always told me, and I imagined." Lucas touched the sketch. His eyes glistened. He inhaled deeply, then said, "I'm not asking for your forgiveness, Harper, but I'm asking for a chancenote to fix the past, but to be here, if you'll let me." Harper studied him. For the first time, she no longer saw a powerful millionaire, saw a father, imperfect but sincere. "One step at a time," she said. "I don't know what will happen next, but if you want to be my dad, be someone I can trust." They did not hug, they did not hold hands, but their eyes met as if two people stood before an old bridge, deciding together to take that first step. Outside the cafe, the sun climbed higher, streaming through the window and illuminating Nora's painting in a golden arc, a fragile beginning, but a real one. 1 year after their first meeting, Harper and Lucas stood silently before Nora's grave at Lafayette Cemetery in New Orleans. The sun shone gently, its golden light filtering through the ancient oak branches and casting patterns on the simple headstone inscribed, "Nora Sullivan, 1978, 2015, Painter of Light." No one spoke, yet the air between them felt lighter than it had before, silence born of mutual understanding, conveying what words could not. Harper placed a new painting at her mother's grave, a night sky filled with stars, but most striking were 3 large stars painted close together, one for Nora, one for Harper, one for Lucas. Each star symbolized a wound once separate, now reunited by light. Lucas knelt and carefully laid a silver locket on the stone. Inside was an old photograph of Nora and a pressed star cut from the very first canvas she painted for him. "I will never forget you," he whispered, his voice catching. Harper rested her hand on Lucas's shoulder. No words of comfort were needed. In that moment, they were no longer strangers bound only by blood, but two souls who had learned forgiveness and now shared the love and memories left behind by a woman who changed them both. Over the past year, Harper had transformed dramatically. From an unknown art student, she had become one of New Orleans' most promising young artists. Her first solo exhibition, Stars We Carry, was held in a small, cozy gallery, showcasing works that bore her mother's influence, childhood memories, and Harper's own rebirth. Lucas never took to the stage. He quietly sponsored the exhibition and supported community art projects just as Nora once did. But at the opening, he sat in the back row, watching in silence. When Harper stepped up to speak before hundreds of attendees, she wore a deep violet-blue dress like the night sky, her eyes steady and her voice full of emotion. "My mother taught me that love is the courage to repaint what was lost. I once had no father, but now I have someone brave enough to stay." Tears glistened in the crowd, and waves of applause followed. And for the first time, Lucas stood and joined Harper on Stagino as a billionaire or businessman, but as a father who chose to stay. He handed her a small box. Inside lay a worn sketchbook. On its first page was Nora's handwriting, faded but legible. "Love is the stars we carry, even if the heavens change." Harper embraced him, a first embrace, born not of obligation but of choice. They had traveled a long path, from loss and pain, through forgiveness, to a bond renewed. That night, Harper's speech went viral across social media, millions of views, and hundreds of thousands of heartfelt comments. "I cried when I saw them hug. This is the forgiveness I want to believe in. This story makes me think of my own father whom I never understood." And under New Orleans' starry sky, Harper and Lucas walked side by side, no longer two strangers bound by a birthmark, but two courageous hearts who chose to rewrite their legacy with love, truth, and presence. A star on the wrist brought them together, but it is the courageous, sincere heart that keeps them together. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the story. If Harper and Lucas's journey has touched your heart, please subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any more moving stories. Leave your thoughts in the comments. We're always listening. Share this video with your family and friends in the US. Or anywhere. Someone out there may be searching for a spark of hope just like this. And let us know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. We love connecting with you through these small, meaningful moments. See you in the next story, where the heart leads and love writes the next chapter.